Yo, this is Joel Davis,
And I'm Gracie Davis,
and this is Greater Than Real Estate.
where we go deep to find out who you really are beyond real estate.
Well, we're back here with Greater Than Real Estate with our newest guest, James Keoughan. We're super excited to have you here, James. Thanks for coming out.
Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, so let's kind of start it from kind of way back. Are you from Texas? If you're not from Texas, how'd you get into Texas? What are some couple of jobs that you did before you got into real estate?
So yes, was born in Texas, raised in Texas. Have lived in a few other states across the country as a kid, but moved back when I was 15 and have been here ever since. A few of the jobs, I've planted trees before, worked at Pizza Hut at the ripe age of 16 and became a manager, I guess because people just leave that business, that industry. And yeah, that was an interesting job. But I've done a lot of things in my life. Worked in corporate America. As you mentioned earlier, I've been a chef before.
Yeah, I really want to dive into the chef part.
Yeah.
So what made you want to be a chef? I think a lot of people think about being a chef, but they never really take the steps to do it. So what kind of got you into that direction?
Yeah, so I was kind of in the midst of college and working in a job and not real excited about that job. And I was in the middle of college, and I'm like, where's all this leading to? And so I decided that maybe there's something else out there that interests me.
Yeah.
And this is about the time when a lot of the cooking shows were starting to be on TV. Really, the public broadcasting channels used to broadcast around lunchtime every day a cooking show from different variety of chefs.
Interesting.
And I just started to watch those and this is cool. And I started learning, kind of self-taught how to be a chef or how to cook. And I started inviting friends over, and we would have dinners that I would make. And this went on for a couple of years, and then I was kind of in this place where I'm like, well, where do I want to go? Where's my career path? And so I said, well, let's try cooking. And so I reached out to my mom and said, hey, I'm thinking of this as a potential career. And she said, well, before you go spend, this is probably 30 years ago, before you spend, $25,000, which 30 years ago was a good amount of money.
Yeah.
And moved to New York because I wanted to attend the CIA, which is the Culinary Institute of America.
That's not what I thought.
No, I know. That's why I say the name afterwards. So you have to obviously provide your own housing and your own food, which I guess the restaurant would feed you. But the cooking school, it's like a 2-year program.
Wow.
And so I looked into that, and my mom said, hey, before you go spend that money, are you even sure that you would like to work in a restaurant? And I said, well, I've been a waiter before, but not a chef. And she says, well, why don't you go get a job as a chef at a really nice restaurant? Don't work at Chili's or, one of these other fast, restaurants. Go to a nice fine dining restaurant. And so I did. And I got on as a chef at what was called at the time Bonash. It's in the Crescent Court Hotel here in downtown Dallas. And the executive chef, James Keoughan was his name, he had a similar background. He worked his way through school as being a chef. And so kind of had some similar background, and so he hired me. And I worked there for about a year and a half. And that's about the time I met my wife. And I looked at, a chef works weekends, nights, holidays. And my girlfriend / fiance at the time, she worked 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. So I didn't feel like those two would work together.
Yeah.
As far as those career paths, and so I decided that, okay, I like this girl more than I like being a chef, so I'm gonna make a decision and get a real job, and that's when I got into software sales.
That's awesome. That's really cool. I think what type of because there's different types of I don't want to try to act like I know what I'm talking about when it comes to food, but
Yes.
Italian, American steaks, what did they make at that restaurant?
So the hotel had 4 restaurants in the hotel.
Wow.
Then they also did room service.
Okay.
So they had a pretty big kitchen. So I worked in the main restaurant, which was more of a I would say Cajun type theme restaurant.
Yeah.
But they had a wide variety of products, but there was definitely a slant towards Cajun food.
Dang. Okay.
And now it's a Japanese restaurant.
Wow. All right. So you know how to make a roux when it comes to the gumbo and shrimp creole. That is the worst part
I have
of all of it.
a burn from
Oh,
the
my.
latest roux that I tried to make for our shrimp creole.
Well, yeah, that's a side effect of being trying to be a chef or being a chef.
Exactly.
What do
Your
you
hands
miss?
and arms will.
Yeah.
burn.
Do you miss any parts of being a chef? I mean, I'm sure you make some meals at home, but do you kind of miss the thought of that?
Yeah, there's a creative side.
Yeah.
And my family, there's artists. My great aunt was an artist, and she's won some local awards down in San Antonio. That was a long time ago. So there's an artistic slant that you get. It kind of gets fed by being a chef.
Yeah.
Because you're creating art with food.
Yeah.
And some guys go really to the extreme, and some people are just making comfort food.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a mix of providing nourishment and comfort to people, and then also being creative with what you produce.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So you mentioned you met your wife, and that's what kind of led to you wanting to get into software sales. So how long have you been married, and do you guys have any kids? What's your family life like?
26 years.
Okay.
Yeah. And so I really was to get a job that I could work 8 to 5. It wasn't necessarily software sales. That's just where I ended up.
Right.
Yeah.
Great time to be in software sales in the late 90s because that was the Y2K scare, and everybody was buying everything to protect their systems. And
Yeah.
I was in security software,
Okay.
antivirus to be specific.
Wow.
And so everyone was getting prepared for Y2K and revamping and buying new stuff to make sure that it was Y2K compliant. That was a big deal back then.
Yeah.
Really?
Yes, we have 4 children. We have 2 in college, A&M, and one at North Texas. And we've got another son who's graduating high school in May and will be going to North Texas.
Okay.
And then eventually transfer to A&M to be with his older brother. And then we have a daughter. So we have 3 boys, 1 girl, and the daughter just made the Emerald Bells, which is Carroll's high school's drill team and dance squad.
That's exciting.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
So
You kind of talked about how difficult that is, that they're pretty well renowned and do a lot of big things like the Macy's Day, Thanksgiving parade. So that's really cool.
yeah, it's an honor I think for her to, be accepted, and she tried out, and she's on, and she's very excited, and we're excited for her, and it really is going to bring our family closer to the Carroll Dragon community because now we're part of it.
Yeah.
She's going to be attending, games and be at halftime and do all those things
Yeah.
around sports within the school. We're excited about that opportunity to get closer to the school program.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
So with a big family and a real estate business, how do you separate and have a good work-life balance?
So, there's these rings of concentration that you want to, try to succeed in all of those. It's faith, it's family, it's work, it's giving back,
Yeah.
so there's all those, and then your own health as well. So all these rings, and it's difficult to divide your time equally to all of those. So there's always, seems like there's always something you're missing in one of those rings at any given moment, right?
Yeah.
And so you just have to kind of think about things in the future and put a plan together for those. But you have to kind of divide your time where you're most needed, and keep an eye on all the rest. And certainly that's a juggle. It's a challenge. And I think you just, every day is a new day, and you just have to, okay, where do I focus today? And I think if you take it one day at a time, that is a lot easier than trying to think about it all the time, because it'll kind of drive you nuts, I think.
Yeah, I would completely agree. I think we get caught up sometimes thinking so much about the future instead of worrying about right now and just what we can do right now. So that's a really good lesson for sure. How long did it take you to implement that, or has that always been something you've been good at?
Well, about a year into this business, so I was 35, so early 2002 is when I got my license. So in 2003, I attended a Brian Buffini. It was called it was a life kind of refocus or life-changing event. Turning Point Retreat is what he called it. And basically, he presented you with this option to, you are in a position at any point in your life that you can turn the corner. You can make a difference. You can go a different direction.
Yeah.
And so that's what that was about. And it was definitely a turning point. I walked away from there with really a lot of hope and a plan. And that's where those rings came from.
Yeah.
It's from Brian. He's a fellow Irishman. And so he actually moved here from Ireland. I didn't. My ancestors did a few hundred years ago. But so it's definitely refreshing.
Yeah.
You can kind of lose your way when you're an entrepreneur and you get lost in all the details. But he definitely says, if you focus on your clients, you'll be successful. If you give to your clients, you will be successful. And so just living that mantra every day is, what can I do for my clients today? You'll reap the rewards. It's planting seeds with your clients on a continual basis throughout your career. And all those seeds will come back, and blossom and help you with what you want to do in life. So,
that's really good.
but that was where it kind of brought together, because I was like, I've never done this before. I had bought one home before.
Yeah.
I got into the career and didn't really know how to do it. And so there is the training that you're supposed to take, that the state requires you to take in order to get your license. But after that, at the time, there's a few training programs, but you're on your own to figure it out. And Brian did have a coaching program that I did sign up for and went through for a couple of years, and kind of got some basics down from him and his coaching company. And it really launched my career. And, there was kind of a heart-to-heart meeting that my wife and I had about this whole training and coaching, because it costs money. And I didn't have a lot of it when I got into it. Starting a new career, and we did have a nest egg, and we worked off of that. And she was working, so there was money, but not a lot.
Yeah.
And so she basically said, you've got a year, and to make it with this program, and if not, then you need to make a decision. I think today she would come back and say it was probably well spent money, because it created a very successful career by having that training and getting someone to coach you along the process and be a sounding board for you. I think anyone should, or most everyone who wants to be successful should have a coach or some mentorship program that they can tap into or lean into when they need it. And I needed it probably more than others, but I think everyone needs a resource like that to fall back on, that they can, get some coaching and get some, hey, how did you handle this, this situation, or how would you handle this situation?
Yeah.
And so I think that's important, and everyone should have something like that.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think Gracie, we kind of had the same thing because when I first got into the business, she was doing insurance, and when you first get into this business, you don't make a lot of money right away. So I think we kind of had a heart to heart too. Like I would work like 3/4 of the day, and then I would go do Instacart to try to pay, for some of the grocery bills or gas bills and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, absolutely. So whenever you, did you transition from the software sales into real estate, or was there anything in between? And what kind of led to you deciding, okay, real estate is what my next step is going to be?
Yeah, so my last job in software sales or technology sales, it was a startup. So I'd worked for a company, and my director was leaving to start up a company, and he tapped me on the shoulder. He said, you're a great, very hard worker. We see an opportunity here with our company. We'd love to hire you. And my wife was pregnant with our first child. And so not only was I switching careers or switching companies, but they had asked me to move to Atlanta, Georgia from Dallas.
Oh.
And my wife's like, no, we are not doing that. I give birth in a few months, and I need a support system. I need my family.
yeah.
I never had a kid, didn't know what all that was about, but
Yeah.
You're about to learn.
well, yeah, absolutely.
You're about to find out.
And I'm glad that she had the foresight
Yeah.
and the maturity
Yeah.
to make that decision for our family, or to help me make the decision for our
Yeah.
family, that maybe that's not the best place.
Yeah.
A startup and moving, any of that could go awry
Yeah.
pretty quickly. And so we stayed put, and I got on a plane every Monday to fly to Atlanta, and I had to be in a meeting at noon every Monday morning in Georgia. And so I did that, and then about a year into that, after I think our son was 9 or 10 months old, she approached me and said, this isn't really what I pictured. And this is obviously, family information.
Yeah.
But
behind the veil.
she said that this is not what she envisioned, you being gone, and I'm here raising our child alone and working, and so we made a decision as a family that I needed to find local employment, something to do where I could help out and have a bit more flexible schedule. So I looked at several different careers: insurance, opening up my own running shoe store, a cleaners, a dry cleaning company.
Yeah.
I looked at a lot of different things to say, okay, what can I do that I have some flexibility?
Yeah.
Again, reached out to my mother and said, I'm faced with this opportunity. Any suggestions? She goes, well, both your grandfathers were in real estate in San Antonio. And she goes, maybe that's an option. So I looked into that and found that it was, a few classes, and you can get your license, and so that's really how that started. And
Shout out to mom.
yeah, she's got some cred, some experience to kind of help us out, help me anyway. And so that's really kind of how I got into real estate, was needing to have a flexible career,
Yeah.
something I can transition into fairly quickly, and just have a more flexible schedule. So that was why we did it, or that's why I did it.
That's awesome. Gracie, she laughed when you said running shoe store because she actually did that.
I worked at a running shoe store
Yeah.
from the time that I was 15 till I graduated college.
Yeah.
First one was in Arlington. Shout out to the runner. And then after that, when I went to college and I was in school at A&M, I was working at Brazos Running Company.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I love that. That's great.
That's awesome. So were you a big runner growing up? Or what? Why did you think?
Yeah, I was
I
into
would have
running.
never thought of
I was
running shoe store.
running 5Ks and so that was something that interested me. And
Yeah.
in fact, my son today works at a running shoe store. He's in college, so he works at one in it's a Dallas or Fort Worth running.
Fort Worth Running Company.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
they have a location in South Lake, and he works there.
I was telling my
cool.
wife, I was like, how could you make a store just about running? Like, I never
They do
realized that many people liked running because I was like, after sports, I was like, yeah, running. The only time you ever see me running is if I'm running, you need to be worried because there's probably somebody chasing
You need
me.
to run with me because
you
we got
need
to get
run
out of
with me
here.
because I'm never going to be running.
Yeah.
Well, for baseball, running was a punishment.
Oh,
So
yeah,
I can
100%.
understand why you never enjoyed it. For me, in track, that was my sport, so I enjoyed it.
The runner's high, that's a lie. There's no such thing as a runner's high. There's a runner's low. That's what I'm going to say because that's what I had.
So you said you ran 5Ks and things like that. Do you still run? What was like your
No.
most fun race you ever did or were a part of?
Well, actually, ran a 5K while pushing my son, who was in that 3-wheel
Yeah.
push cart.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so we did that, and that was probably the funnest. It was not really about me.
Yeah.
It was more about my son and
Yeah.
taking him on this journey.
Yeah.
As I run a 5K with him in the stroller. It wasn't a stroller. I mean, it was a running stroller. I guess.
Yeah.
We
Right.
have him now, but so that was probably the funnest one. And I run the St. Patrick's Day parade here in Dallas.
Yeah.
They have a 5K before.
Do they?
Yeah.
Yeah. You work out and then you go get drunk. So
So
Yeah.
is that what we need to do, the 5K, those? We need to start doing those? No, I'll answer that for you.
yeah, they're fun.
No, that's funny. That's awesome.
I would love to do a 5K with Joel.
Hey,
I'm always
I'm
trying
not
to
holding you
convince him
back.
to get
You-
do a race. Or
You can do
something.
that yourself. I'll cheer from the side.
Give me a sign.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you've been in the business since 2002. Success for you has changed since you started till now. So what would you define as success?
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly the expectation every year is, you write a number down on a piece of paper at the end of every year as your goal for the next year.
Yeah.
And, how can I accomplish that, right? I think as an entrepreneur, you wake up every morning unemployed, right? It's
Yeah.
like, what am I going to do today? How am I going to inch toward that goal that I set for myself, several months back? And so, yeah, you just have to get up and get, you have a fire in your belly. You've got people dependent on you, not only at home, but, if you've been in the career long enough, you probably have an assistant or two, and you have other agents that I've had a team since 2007. It's not always been the same people. It kind of, it's okay, next, right?
Yeah.
Because people just want to go do something different, or they want to go do something with, on their own.
Yeah.
And I've always told people, I'm not going to be a boat anchor for you. If you see another opportunity somewhere that's better for you and your family, take it. Because I believe that, everyone needs to be happy in what they're doing. And if they're not happy, or they see another opportunity, or they want to go do this on their own, by all means. Because that's what, excites me every day when I get up, is that this is my deal, and it's my company, and I'm serving my clients, and I'm, working with the people that I want to work with.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that answered your question, but it's
Yeah. No, I think it answered it for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, that's very exciting. And yeah, now, like you said, leading a team, that's something that I hope to be doing in a couple of years. But it takes a lot, not only to do what you're doing every day, like you said, waking up unemployed, but also knowing that there are people depending on you and there are people that are, wanting to learn from you. So what are some of the ways that you've been able to teach the people underneath you, and what are some like the best leadership skills that you've learned in leading a team?
So, as they say, you learn as you teach,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right? So, there was some sales experience from previous jobs that I've had. So, I've also taken Dale Carnegie courses, and so there's some of those things that I will pull out.
Mm-hmm.
But I believe as long as you are serving your clients' needs,
Mm-hmm.
that's the first thing, and that's the main goal of being in this particular business. And I think any service industry,
Yeah.
that's the goal,
Yeah.
right? Because without clients, you have no business. So
Correct.
clients are your number one concern. You need to make sure that you're doing what you've committed, what you've said you're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And if you do that and you hit that mark all the time, then people learn to trust you. Because again, at least in my industry, this is typically the largest asset that someone owns.
Oh yeah.
And so they have to trust you that you're going to do the right thing by them.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think if you wake up every morning with that goal in mind, that will get you pretty far in this career or any service industry career. But as far as leadership skills and training, I think it's just sharing experiences. Being Irish, I always say, well, I have a lot of stories to tell. You may or may not like them, but these are my stories. I think through sharing stories with your team members, that puts some reality to the lesson that you're trying to teach them.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is very basic type things. How do you handle a phone call? Who do you call? Who are your clients? Where do you get clients? Those are all questions that if someone's new in the business, they don't know.
Yeah.
Right.
And you have to help them understand where they get these people.
Yeah.
And obviously, it's your friends and family first,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's where you go to first, because hopefully they trust you, and you trust them that they're not going to kick you to the curb, and it's a more warm type process versus someone that you don't know. So I always say start with those folks and get really good working with them, because if you do something wrong to a friend or a family member, you're never going to hear the end of it, right?
Yeah.
So if you can do good by them,
Yeah.
then that carries over to the client that you don't know.
Yeah.
And so in real estate, I look at, and I think this kind of keeps me focused, is I look at each home that I either sell or buy as, if this was mine, what would I do?
Yeah.
And I keep that in the back of my head so that always guides me to the right decision to help my client make the right decision.
Yeah.
And so I teach my team members that same philosophy,
Right.
is just focus on them and do the right thing by them. And that's served me well for 22 years. So
Yeah.
again, hopefully that answered your question.
Yeah, no,
awesome.
I think that definitely answered it. You talked about Buffini a little bit earlier. Do you have any mentors within like the real estate industry in Texas that really made an impact on your career?
Yeah, I do have one, and her name is Cheryl, and she was an agent in the area that I work in, and I started working with her as a coach. So I was with Buffini for a couple years, and then left Buffini, and then picked up Cheryl as a coach, and she had more local experience.
Yeah.
Knew, because when I said, I have this listing on this street in this town in the local market, she knew about it, and she knew the pluses and the minuses. And one particular situation that I had is I had a property that backed up to a busy street. And we're talking 6 lanes, right? 3 going in each direction.
Wow.
And when I comped it out, there was another similar floor plan in the neighborhood, in the middle of the neighborhood. And so I comped it using that, and it was not selling. So I reached out to her as my coach, and I said, any thoughts here? And she goes, well, find another neighborhood with a similar situation where you've got a house that backs up to this busy road,
Yeah.
and then try to find a property in the neighborhood of similar size and see what is the difference between these two in sales price.
Yeah.
There was a 17% discount
Whoa.
between the home in the neighborhood versus the one that backed up to the busy street.
Yeah.
I would have never gotten to that number if I hadn't asked that question,
Yeah.
right? So the coach helped me get to this number. Now, it could have been 5%, it could have been, but it was 17. It was a big
That's
number.
a big, yeah.
So I went to the sellers and I said, here's kind of what we're looking at.
Yeah.
And they said, well, we bought it at a discount because of the road. So we understand. We were hopeful that we'd get a higher number, but, we need to sell the home. So let's go ahead and do that. And within 15 days of doing that price adjustment, it was under contract.
Wow.
So, it's location, location, location.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and condition as well.
Yeah, for sure.
But, so that was something I would have, it would have taken me a long time to get down to that because I was, again, I would want to hold as much value as I could
Yeah.
Yeah.
because, I'm not going to get to sell it twice. I can only
Yeah.
sell it once. So, but that was a great lesson to learn is, really kind of go out and find a similar situation to help your client.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
What are some other key lessons kind of like that you've learned throughout your career that now you implement or you teach to your team and kind of say like, okay, moving forward, this is what you need to understand about this type of home or this type of neighborhood or whatever it may be?
That's a big question.
There's a lot, I'm sure.
There is a lot. I think the stories that I have are, every market's different. Every market's local. And you really need to be familiar with that market.
Yeah.
I think we do a disservice to our clients if we try to sell them a product or help them find a product that we are unfamiliar with. A residential selling commercial or and then there's so many different types of commercial properties that you can buy. And so really specializing or focusing on a particular market segment or a market area and becoming really adept at that area. Knowing the schools, knowing the type of government that each city is run by.
Yeah.
Having those contacts within the school system, within the city,
Yeah.
so that when a new person moves to the area, they're unfamiliar, you can introduce them to those people, and then they feel connected. So connecting these buyers with a new community that they have some interest in is, I think, key to helping them not assimilate, but just become more comfortable with where they're going to be living.
Yeah.
And I think that's important to be able to share your experiences of an area of, hey, here's some cool restaurants or here's some, the schools that I'm familiar with that you may, even private schools, you need to be able to help people because not everyone goes to the public school. They want a private school that they like to attend or they want their kids to go to private school. So you need to be familiar with those as well.
Yeah.
So I do think just really focusing on a market area and become an expert there. Don't try to be,
Do everything for everybody.
Yeah.
So what would you say is your market area in saying that?
So
What are your
Northeast Tarrant
focus?
County.
Okay.
Yeah. So the South Lake, Grapevine, Colleyville, Trophy Club, Westlake, Keller,
Yeah.
kind of that North Orchard Hills, that
Mm-hmm.
quadrant.
Yeah.
Great. It's all within a 5-mile radius of where I live.
Mm-hmm.
And I think most agents, as they get into their career, you know, when you first become a realtor, it's, I have a car, let's go. Where do you want to buy? I have a license for the entire state of Texas.
Yeah.
Waco, let's go.
Yeah.
Because you're eager, right? You
hustling.
want to get a sale. You want to help somebody buy a home
Yeah.
Right.
or sell a home. But I think as you mature in the business, your area starts to kind of come in and you start almost like bullseye
Right.
that market and really become an expert in there and know the streets and know the neighborhoods and know the schools and know the cities and
Yeah.
you know, the chambers of commerce, and you really become a fabric of the community.
Yeah.
And I think it helps when you live there because you're already a part of that community. So you're already meeting people and getting involved in things, and you meet people within that network, and those are the people that need to buy or sell. So it helps when
Yeah.
you do get involved, I think, too.
Sure, and this is not a business to be a secret agent in,
Yeah.
right? You're not going to get anywhere. You have to be out there. You have to put your, you know, your concerns about being in the public eye to the side. One thing I learned, I went to work for Sotheby's in 2013, and I never thought about this. I figured, you know, my time is my time. I'm going to do what I want, dress how I want, go where I want.
Yeah.
But I met a lady, and she worked at Neiman Marcus. And she shared with me that when you're out in the public, you know, you've done all this advertising, you're in all these magazines, you're on all these websites, and you're doing videos, and you're everywhere, and you're dressed appropriately, right?
Yeah.
Well, when you go to Central Market or Tom Thumb or a grocery store, people expect to see you like this. And when they don't see you, then it's like, wait, they have a hard time connecting the fact that, yes, I do have a life after this job,
Yeah.
right? Or after
Yeah.
this career.
Yeah.
Right.
So you have to be very careful. So if you're going to go out in the public, you try to be as presentable as possible.
Yeah.
You know, wearing your workout gear to the grocery store.
Yeah.
Unless it's super early in the morning, you're running out real quick. But yeah, anywhere you go, after you open yourself up to the public, you need to be presentable. And so because you've set an image
Yeah.
for your brand, and when you don't dress that way or are not presentable, then you're tarnishing your image.
Interesting. My wife would say that would mean, for me, no more camo Crocs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Keep them for the walking in the yard. Yeah. Around the house.
I wish he would. Maybe he'll learn from this
Yeah.
conversation.
But so I'm gonna ask a fun question since
Sure.
Gracie asked all the hard questions. What is the craziest transaction you've ever had?
They happen often, quite honestly. Yeah, there's been some crazy ones, and some of them are painful. You know, it's you think everything's going smoothly, and all of a sudden you get a curveball, and it's how you deal with it, right?
Yeah.
That really shows your level of experience.
Yeah.
You know, some of this stuff, you know, it's people's lives, and you don't want to necessarily share too much about them, but there
Yeah.
are crazy stories. Just, I've had things where, you know, it's the weekend before closing, and a hailstorm comes,
Oh.
and it's like, oh no,
Yeah.
that's a problem, or a water leak, or you know, there's some sort of damage to the house.
Yeah.
It throws a wrench. I mean, because you've got people in, you know, all their stuff's in a van with movers, and their kids and everything are in a hotel. They're waiting for closing. Early on in my career, I had the craziest thing I think that I've seen in 22 years. So we close on a Friday, which again, I would not suggest to anybody. Move your close dates to somewhere in the week, because if it's on a Friday and something goes wrong, you have no recourse. You've got there's no gap,
Yeah.
right?
very
You
good.
can't
Very
make
smart.
up. Now it's 3 days later, right?
Yeah.
When you can close,
Very
or
true.
something like that. So don't close on a Friday. So we're closing. All their stuff's in a van. I'm the buyer's agent.
Yeah.
Okay. And the closing's, I think, at like 12 or 1 o'clock.
Okay.
And the sellers coming in after the buyer closes. And so they've got everything. They're planning to move in that day after closing as soon as it funds, because that's what it says in the contract.
Yeah.
Well, I get a phone call
Oh no.
from the buyer. Hey, it's 5 o'clock. We're funded, but the sellers are still here. I'm like, oh, okay. So I call the listing agent. I say, your sellers are still in the house. They're supposed to be gone. Yeah, we have an issue. I'm like, oh, okay. Thanks for telling me. What's the issue? Well, they're divorced, which I knew,
Yeah.
but that can go good or bad.
Yep.
Or in between. Well, it's going horribly bad. Mom or wife is not leaving. She's dug in her heels. All her stuff is still in the house. Husband's moved out. He probably moved out weeks ago. So she says, the agent said, let me call the husband or whatever. Yeah, the ex-husband.
Yeah.
And see if he can, deal with this. So he shows up, and so it's the buyer, the buyer's movers, the ex-husband, the movers that are there to move the wife out.
Yeah.
Because the movers were there. She's just like, no, I'm not doing it.
Oh no.
So the husband goes into the house, and I can hear them yelling at each other, right? All the movers are outside, the buyer's movers over here and the seller's movers over here.
Yeah.
And so he comes out and he says, okay, here's what we're going to do. You guys are going to move your stuff in through the garage. We're going to come out the front door, and that's how we're going to do this. I said, okay. So next thing I know, all the windows, this is a 2-story home, all the windows in the house open up, and they're throwing stuff out the window. And the movers are picking it up and putting it in the van. And I'm just like, oh my heavens, this is the craziest thing I've seen. The buyers are like, what is going on? So that's probably the craziest thing that
Everything got moved, right?
Oh yeah, it was.
Wow.
It was crazy.
That's funny. I've never heard that. Hopefully nothing was thrown out that was breakable out of the windows, but I'm guessing
Mostly
there probably
clothes and some boxes. Who knows what was in the boxes? But yeah, the stuff was coming out. It was like a house was throwing up. That's what it kind of looked like.
It's almost like anytime you see like in a movie where like there's a big breakup scene or they're divorced or whatever.
Oh yeah,
they're just launching everything
out the window. All your clothes and TVs. Yeah,
that's funny. Talk about traumatic, but hey, you got the solution, and if it ever happens again, you can always go back to that.
I share that story with divorced couples sometimes. Say, let's not let this happen.
Let's not let this be.
And we don't want to go there.
Yeah.
That's funny.
So what about the most impactful transactions where the most memorable, it made the biggest difference for the buyer or the seller, something like that we'd love to hear about?
I think one that I can recall is, so obviously across the country there's varying prices of real estate.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And if you were to take the same value of a home in one state and look at another state, the difference is incredible, right?
Yeah.
So there was a family from California that was moving to Keller. Okay. They had sold their house, and it was at the time, this was probably 10, 12 years ago. This was a 1,200 square foot, 3-bedroom. They had 4 kids.
Oh, whoa.
In a 1,200 square foot, 3-bedroom, and it was $600,000. Okay. Which, that's a lot of money.
It's normal for California, though.
Right.
Yeah.
And even today, you probably couldn't buy that home for $600,000.
No.
And so they moved here. They got a 3,600 square foot, 5-bedroom house with a pool on a half acre. And it had a separate detached. In addition to the 2-car attached, they had a 3-car detached garage.
Wow.
So they got, for the same money, like an estate, right? I mean, their life changed
Yeah.
dramatically. Everybody had their own room.
Yeah.
They had plenty of space. They had a pool. None of that was available to them in California.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they were so excited. I mean, they felt like they became Richie Rich now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that was a pretty dramatic, positive thing
Yeah.
for that family.
Yeah.
That home's
Come
probably
from, very humble home
yeah.
to
Right.
almost a mansion.
Yeah.
right?
I mean, it's probably a mansion now. That home's probably worth triple that since it was bought 10 years ago.
So I just know that home sold recently. I think it was $1.2 million. Yeah. So
Wow.
it doubled.
Wow.
in
That's
price.
awesome.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
That is.
That's really cool. Yeah, I was telling people, in those situations, like on social media, I'll have people commenting like, "No, can't do that here. Can't buy a house here. It's $800,000 or $1 million." And I literally say one word, and it's move. Literally, like, you can find a home. Like my parents' home that is in Oklahoma. It is a 4,000 square foot house, over an acre. It's like acre and a half or whatever. They bought it for $375 in 2017. That home in Texas is like even more expensive. So like I understand like the fact that you can find a place and you can find a job. Like there is affordable housing in the United States. Is it going to be in the spot that you want to be in? Maybe not, but there's always an opportunity to purchase a home. You just have to find the right place for it.
I'll tell you, I think, COVID and the issues that it caused
Yeah.
this country. And, I pray for all the folks that didn't make it through that.
Yeah.
It's very traumatic for a lot of families,
Yeah.
losing family members. But one of the things I think that's positive that has come out of that is this working from home. Now, I know there's a lot of going back and forth and people feel differently, especially if you're a business owner and you have employees. You want to have some control over what's going on. But the
Yeah.
greatest thing that's happened to a lot of the workforce is the ability to not have to live in the town where your job is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can live wherever. Just think about that. There's
Yeah.
people that work for a technology company in San Francisco with a one bedroom that's going for $4,000 a month.
Yeah.
$4,000 a month here, total different lifestyle.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And they don't have to spend $4,000.
No.
They can get, a 3-bedroom, 4-bedroom for $4,000
Yeah.
Yeah.
or $3,000.
Yeah. Exactly.
So it just creates a whole different lifestyle for these people, and so that being able to work from home has been I think a great opportunity for people.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so you can talk about it, that working from home is good or bad, but I think for if they're a good worker,
Yeah.
you should be able to trust them.
Yeah.
I know there's a lot of ways that you can get distracted when you work from home, but if you're focused and you're a good person, putting in your hours,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you should have the ability to, if your job can be done remotely, why not?
Yeah, and I think
Right.
some companies benefited off of it because they had less overhead because they didn't have to have an office building with hundreds of people in there, So I think there are silver linings in all of it, for sure.
Yeah, I think definitely, like with our company, it was you go through a training period, and you're obviously learning. And like you said at the beginning, when you're managing a team and things like that, you do want those people to be right there with you, to hear your conversations, to learn from you, to be able to just be side by side. And then once they've earned that flexibility, I think that's like a big thing that we always talk about is like earning the flexibility. Once you've been able to prove yourself and you can be successful on your own, then yeah, by all means. I mean, that was the best thing about my company and why I, ended up deciding to own my own agency was just I had worked in the corporate office for 5 years. I had learned, okay, this is what a team aspect looks like. These are the expectations for my job. This is what I have to do in order to make things happen. And once I learned that, then I realized I can do this now on my own, and I can build a team of people who learn how to do this too. So that's a great aspect of things that have changed in the past couple of years that have allowed for those opportunities for people to get to work from home and ultimately have freedom in work-life balance. And I mean, I know Joel and I always talk about the benefits of getting to travel. While before we have kids, we're able to travel and still be able to work. Wherever we have our computer, we can work. So
Yeah.
it's definitely been beneficial for us.
Think of the savings in commute time that people
True.
don't have to deal with anymore.
Yep.
For sure.
Right? Being, especially in certain places in the country, I mean, you could be in the car for an hour to get to the job or back.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's 2 hours a day you're picking up. Now, that's not everybody. Obviously, there's people that live much closer, but
Yeah.
some people, based on their income, can't afford to be close to work, so they have to live away.
For
Right.
sure.
And so now
So
that
then
saves
it's
them all that time
Yeah.
that they're not commuting.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's got to make you feel a lot better about life.
Oh.
You're not in the car, 10 hours a day
For
100%.
sure.
or 10 hours a week.
Yeah.
And the time with family too that you're getting to spend
For
because
sure.
you don't have to drive that hour.
I mean, we get to, spend a lot of time together. You're the best HR person in the house. I'll let you know that right now. But
Yes.
no, it's
Office manager.
yeah, it's fun to be able to, work at home and be with you a lot. So
Yeah, absolutely. So, what is one of the biggest lessons that you learned over your career?
Don't take yourself too seriously. Yeah, I think don't get a big head.
Yeah.
I had an agent that came to me, and she was kind of starting her own. She left the team and was starting her own, and partly because she really was dominating a market, and she felt like, well, I don't need the team per se.
Yeah.
I can do this on my own. And that's, like I said, agents will get to that place
Yeah.
where they feel like, okay, I've learned enough, I know enough, I have enough business, I can go do this on my own.
Yeah.
And that's where she was, and she had a very successful year. This was a few years ago. She called me and she said, James, I just burnt out. I'm like, wait, this is what you wanted. You wanted to go out on your own.
yeah.
Yeah.
You wanted to be successful. You wanted to knock it out of the park.
Yeah.
And you've done that. And she goes, yeah, I've done that. I said, but here's what the thing is. If you don't keep your foot on the pedal, it will go away just as quick as it came.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So don't stop. Take little holidays, take an afternoon. You can't be going, you can't just take your foot off the gas, because if you do, and I said it happened to me in 2006. 2005 had a great year. Biggest year I've had. Now I've only been in the business, 3-4 years at the time.
Yeah.
So, it was appropriate then. I felt like I had made it. I've did 30 deals that one year.
Yeah.
And so I felt very successful. And so the next year I kind of just coasted, right? I didn't do all the things that I was doing. I wasn't knocking on doors. I wasn't making phone calls. I was just, hey, I'm here. I made it.
Yeah.
Well, that year, half. And I'm like, oh my heavens, what have I done?
Yeah.
And so I called my coach, and she goes, yeah, you took your foot off the gas. Now you have to go, okay, all that momentum you just gained from the start to 2005,
Yeah.
it's gone.
Yeah.
You got to start over. Not completely, but it's just like driving a car,
Yeah.
If you take your foot off the gas, it's eventually going to slow down to a stop. Now you got to get that going again.
Yeah.
So if you don't stop, it continues.
Yeah.
But as soon as you take your foot off the gas, it takes a little while,
Yeah.
but eventually it's going to come to a stop.
I think it's just dominating those money-making activities. Like if you're door knocking or if you're prospecting, whatever it is, whether you're busy or whether you're not busy, you have to make those your non-negotiables and just keep on doing them.
Yeah, find something that you feel like is bringing the business in, wherever you're generating those leads. I mean, lead generation is big. It's
Yeah.
big for any service industry.
Yeah.
You guys know this.
Yep.
You know, I know it. Leads are what drives the business.
Correct.
And so you're always having to figure out, okay, where am I getting my business from?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
focus on those.
Yeah.
And for us, it's referrals,
Yeah.
right? The biggest impact that we can get from our clients is when they refer us someone,
Yeah.
right? That's huge.
Yep.
And really taking care of those people that has sent you, they've every time you give a referral, let's say you have a friend that's looking for a new hairdresser, right? She's not going to look at the yellow pages. She's not going to look online. She's going to come to her friends and say, hey, this person moved, they retired, whatever. I need a new one.
Yeah.
Who do you use? Love your hair. You know, who are you using? So that referral. Now you're giving a little bit of you away with that referral to that friend of yours,
Yeah.
right? And so you're hoping that your hairstylist or your realtor or your lender or your insurance agent does a good job for your friend
Correct.
because your name is on the line.
Yep.
Right.
And if
100%.
they screw up, then mud is on your face,
Yeah.
right? And so by doing a good job and taking care of the people who are referring you business and really appreciating the fact that they've done that because it took a lot, you know, it took a miracle for them to do that.
Yeah.
They had to remember you first, right?
Yeah.
And remember your information.
Yeah.
But so those are things that I think, if again, going back to taking care of your clients and really making them feel like they're referring the best agent or the
Yeah.
best whoever you are
Yeah.
in the world.
Let's backtrack. You said yellow pages. What are yellow pages? No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
I said that to somebody. I said, probably don't know what this is, but you know, the yellow pages, or you don't look online anymore.
Yeah.
Right? But yeah,
Google it.
Yeah, well, you know what's interesting? They said Google has become like the second top search engine for millennials now. The top search engine for millennials is like Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and TikTok, which is
That's where they go
nuts.
to find
Yeah, that's where they go to find
also.
information now, which is pretty crazy.
it is.
Yeah. So if you could go back and talk to your 18-year-old self, what would you tell him?
I was in a way different place. I had no idea I was going to go in the Marines.
Yeah, I remember that.
Wow.
That was my option because I lived in San Antonio, and military bases. I think there's 5 military bases in San Antonio.
Wow.
Yeah, so your options in San Antonio were either, you know, the going into the military,
Yep.
or the entertainment, because it's a big tourist
Yeah.
destination. So in the
Yep.
tourist industry or in the armed services is what your options were really at that point.
Wow.
So I had a friend whose brother was in the Marines, and we were going to go in together. And so I met with my dad to let him know this. My mom heard this and was very concerned.
Yeah.
She reached out to my dad and said, you need to talk to your son. This is not a good career for him to go into. And so he sat me down and said, you know, I really don't believe this is the right place for you. And so he offered me to move to Dallas. I could live with him, and he would pay for my first semester in college. And so that's why I didn't go in the Marines.
Yeah.
And so, yes, if I could now go back and talk to myself as 18, I would probably have said the same thing as my dad did. So, yeah, that's probably what I would say.
Wow. Did your friend end up going still?
He went to the FBI.
Okay.
Oh, the difference of the CIA, right?
Yeah, right. So he did technically go into government, you know,
Yeah.
a government job,
Yeah.
and then he became a detective for Palm Beach Sheriff's Office.
That's a tough life.
Yeah.
Mm.
You know,
So
different topic.
yeah. So with your kids, I
Mhm.
know you said that they're either in high school or college at this point. Have any of them shown any interest in following in your footsteps down the real estate path, or do they all kind of have their own aspirations for different things?
You know, I think that certainly they've expressed, "Oh, can I come work for you, Dad, or can I come work with you?" And
Mm-hmm.
what what I would prefer them to do is to go to college, which they're doing,
Yeah.
and get something that is a skill that will be usable and like in the computer industry or technology industry, those jobs are plentiful and there will be for years to come. Doctors, lawyers, things of that nature.
Always need those.
Yeah, there are always going to be a need for those. So that's basically what I said is have a job that's always going to be needed. The real estate industry is changing right in front of us.
Yep.
There's things that are going on. I mean, obviously with technology, there was a big change to our industry. It helped. It has helped.
Yeah.
And there's been some bad things that have come from technology. Now we're seeing just this monumental change in how agents are going to be paid moving forward. Again, another conversation for another day.
Yeah.
But so I want them to be secure in their line of work and not be fearful of, okay, when is my job going to go away?
Yeah.
And we've seen that, at least during my lifetime, manufacturing's left the country. That's starting to come back, but a lot of that's left. I mean, technology left for a while, and it seems to kind of come back a little bit.
Yeah.
So it's just trying to find a career that you will have a long career path in. Yeah. So, my wife would say, hey, I don't care what they do, just as long as they have a degree.
Yeah.
Because my son, my oldest son, took a gap semester. And he was struggling kind of, I think he was at a similar place where I was. It was like, is this really for me? Where's this leading? For me, it was just taking too long, and I was just wanting to get going. And I think he was kind of at the same place. He's been going for a few years, and I think you get a little lost in, your focus gets lost about, what's the end game here? And he started thinking the same thing. And he came to me and said, hey, I'm really not sure this is what I want to continue to do. I said, why don't you take a break? It's been he started college when COVID came in. That was difficult.
Yeah.
It wasn't what we painted the picture of college to him was going to be.
Yeah.
And completely changed. So I think he kind of got a little disenfranchised about college.
Yeah.
And so I said, okay, let's take a gap semester, but you've got to get a job full time.
Yep.
You can't just sit around the house playing games. So go get a job, and let's see at the end of the semester where you're at.
Yeah.
So he did that and got a job working at the running shoe store where all the employees, there was a 62-year-old lady, there was 2 or 3 guys that were in their 30s and 40s. And so in May, just about the time that spring semester was going to be over, we had a sit down, and I said, okay, so what have you learned from this 3 or 4 months that you've been in a 40-hour job or more? He said, well, I know that I want to go back to college. I said, okay, yeah, why? He said, well, the people that I'm around don't really doesn't seem to be a future. They've settled for this job. And I said, exactly.
Yeah.
Wow.
That is your career if you don't have a college degree. Your options are very limited.
Yeah.
Now, when I was your age, there were more options. But today, it seems like if you don't have a degree, the options are very limited.
Yeah.
And so I said, to give yourself options and to give yourself hope and to give yourself a future, you need to get this done.
Yeah.
And so he enrolled in summer school and has been going back, and he's been making, before it was C's and D's and a couple of B's.
Yeah.
Now it's A's and B's.
That's
so
awesome.
I think it snapped in his head.
Yeah.
And so that was the goal,
Mm.
was that gap semester for him to go learn what is reality like
Yeah.
Yeah.
when I go out and don't have a degree. What am I looking at?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was a wake-up call for him.
Yeah.
It was I didn't necessarily want him to go through that. I'd rather him just finish and
Yeah.
you know, and have the normal, I don't know if you call it normal, what's normal nowadays,
Yeah.
but just go through 4 years and get a job and start his career and all that. But it didn't happen exactly that way.
Mm-hmm.
There was a little lull and that break, and I think he learned a lot from it. And it gives him something to recall,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right? Every time he gets down, I say, okay, you know what your options are, right? Staying where you're at,
Mm-hmm.
or, you know, do what you want
Yeah.
Yeah.
and make good money.
I think the aptitude, though, and the humility that your son was able to, in that moment, not be kind of self-centered, but to just look around and observe what he's doing, that just shows a lot of maturity. And I'm sure he got a lot of that from you and your wife. So that's really cool, because a lot of kids, I've seen a lot of friends take a gap semester and then just go off the rails. So I think that's
Yeah, they make money, and all of a sudden they got money where they didn't have money before,
Yeah.
and they can't envision themselves going back to having no money again.
Yeah.
Right? They enjoy I can buy whatever car I want. Oh, I can, live on my own. Oh, I can, go out and party, and I can buy whatever I want because they've got money now. Right?
Yeah.
Well, that money doesn't go as far as you think it does.
Yeah.
When you start having a family, or you start having,
Mm-hmm.
obligations and car payments and house payments, and all of a sudden you run out of money.
Yeah.
And so if you have, stats say that if you have a degree, you obviously, make more money over the longevity of your career.
Yeah.
So
sure.
they may not see it right at the beginning, but eventually they'll, as they grow in their career, they'll start to make more money and realize, oh yeah, I would have never gotten here if I didn't have that degree.
Yeah.
Now, a degree isn't for everybody, but I think a lot of people, it is becoming more so that
Yeah.
they have to or need one.
Degrees and, trade schools.
Yeah.
Trade schools are really big,
True.
plumbers,
Oh yeah,
electricians, all
that
those.
that's something I talked to my second son about. Was,
Yeah.
okay, if you don't think college is for you, well, you can become a plumber or electrician because they make good money.
Yeah.
You're going to have to get your hands dirty.
Yeah.
Can't be sitting behind a desk, right?
Yeah.
So you need to understand that. So he went and got a job as a dishwasher. I don't know why he volunteered to do that, but he did. He came in and he said, well, I don't want to deal with people. I'll wash dishes. I'm like, okay. That's why you got the job, because you said you want to be a dishwasher. No one comes in wanting to be a dishwasher, right?
Yeah.
It's always like, oh, do I have to do this?
Yeah.
That's only job we've got, so you can have it. But he said, I want to be a dishwasher. Well, after he worked a summer as a dishwasher, he's like, okay, I don't ever want to do that again. But that's manual labor, right?
Yeah.
Again, another good experience for a young person to experience.
Yeah.
What are my options?
Yeah.
Manual labor or some other career that's kind of has no end to it, or no, good end to it.
Yeah.
So
This is something that Joel and I have talked about. I just really appreciate like the concept of your kids getting a job and learning about these different things, because some parents say like, oh, well, I'm never going to make my kid work in high school or any time, like I'll pay for everything. But they don't learn that, one day it's going to be all on them. And it gives them that sense of responsibility. It helps guide them into, okay, this is what I don't want to do the rest of my life, or this is what I do want to do. So I think it's just a great opportunity for people to learn. And, like I mentioned, I worked all through high school and college. But that, again, it just gives you so much perspective. And so we've talked about that, if one day we have kids, kind of what that would look like for our kids and stuff like that.
I think the idea from having kids and, they eventually drown you out or drone you out or put earplugs in.
Yeah.
I think the worst thing that for kids that has been is earbuds, right? Because they can just put them in. They don't have to listen to you anymore. eventually you tell them to do things so often for 16, 15 years, they get tired of listening to it, right? They don't listen to you anymore. So by going and getting a job, it's a wake-up call. It's a slap in the face. Oh, my gosh, my parents were right. This is the real world.
Yeah.
This is what my options are. This is where things are going to go. They can't learn that from you. You can tell them that all you want, but until they actually experience it, are having to go in and get up and go into work and do that and be responsible and have to listen to somebody else tell them what to do, not just mom and dad. Then that's when they really, I think, wake up. So definitely having a job, whether they need the money or not. It's not about the money. It's truly not. Because we pay for everything. Right? And I understand, and I had the same thought process when they were little, right? I don't want them to work. I want them to go, school is most important. College is most important. All those. I don't want them to be distracted or have to do what I did, where I had to work several jobs to make it through college, right? And suffer and just, deal with all that. I want to make it easier. Well, now in hindsight, there is no easy way. Right? They say if it's easy, it's not worth it. And I think it's the same thing. There's life lessons that they get from having a job where mom and dad is not standing there, pointing to them what to do. They have to figure it out on their own. They have to learn from their boss or coworkers or somebody else besides mom and dad because they've toned you out at some point, right? So they got to go figure it out on their own. And having a job, again, whether they need the money or they don't, it's not that. It's about what they learn from that experience and the life lessons that they're going to pick up from that experience moving forward.
So we got one last question. So one of the reasons why we did this podcast is because we've realized that a lot of people struggle with putting their worth and identity in a job or as a parent, or for me, it was sports. Have you ever struggled with any of that when it comes to you in your life?
I think everybody kind of reassesses their situation in life and is this where they want it to be? And again, I think everyone's done that from time to time, and I certainly have. But going back to, again, waking up unemployed every morning, knowing that I have responsibilities, I have people that rely on me, sometimes there's just not time for that, right? You can't self-reflect. If you do, sometimes you'll drive yourself nuts. But one thing, back to Brian Buffini, his dad was a painter, and his dad before him was a painter. So the generational painters. So again, manual labor, service industry. He said every time he would, because he did work for his dad as a painter, and every time he would finish, he'd come to his dad and say, "Okay, I'm done." He says, "Okay, let's go check your work." Normal process. And he says, "Okay, if I wasn't here, could you put your name to that? Would you be willing to look at the customer in the eye and say, 'I'm done,' and walk away and feel good about that, right? Did you miss a spot? Did you did you hit paint somewhere where you weren't supposed to? Did you put enough coats on the wall, right?" Just knowing that, carrying that away, that you walked away, I did what I'm supposed to do, I'm satisfied with my work, and I'm going to put my name on it. And if you can't put your name on it, then you got to go back and do it again or do it right. And if you look at in my world, it's transaction, right? Because every deal is a transaction. Can I put my name to that? Can I walk away from that transaction feeling good that I just got paid and I earned every dollar of it? And, that was a good experience for my client, and all involved learned something from it, or it was a good transaction. Some deals just you can't control everything. Things just can get out of hand. But I would say, 9 times out of 10, or more, 99 times out of 100, I can put my name to everything I've done. So, and I think that's key. If you can have that in your life and do that on every deal, every transaction, every relationship,
Yeah.
every opportunity that I can put my name to that, such as this podcast. I can put my name to this because this is my story,
Yeah.
right? And feel good about all the answers I gave
Yeah.
were true.
Absolutely. So when it comes to your worth and your identity now, what would you say, where do you get that from?
It's self-made,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because there was no Keoughan Real Estate or
Mm-hmm.
the Keoughan Group before that.
Yeah.
And it was just hard work and living up to all those mottos and striving to do the best I can every day and earning it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's really what makes people successful is if you felt like you earned it, then you did the right thing.
Yeah.
So
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for being on the podcast with us. We really enjoyed it. We loved your stories, and we really appreciate you for being here and taking time out of your day.
it's been my
Yeah.
pleasure. Thanks so much for inviting me.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, that is it. We want to give a big shout out to Tap In Studios in Arlington. If you want to do a podcast, give me a shout. I can hook you up with Dante, who can hook you up with everything. And also want to give a big shout out to James. If you guys are looking to get into real estate, he has a team. But also if you're looking to buy or sell, great person to reach out to. He's very knowledgeable and can walk you through the process.
Absolutely.
guys.
All right. See ya.
Thank you.